The call came in at 2:30 on a Tuesday afternoon. Sarah Mitchell did not recognize the number at first, but she recognized the voice the moment she pressed the phone to her ear. It was Arthur Vance. He was the man responsible for $40,000 of Hope Harbor's annual operating budget. He was the reason the lights stayed on and the youth housing program remained solvent. But Arthur was not calling to check in. He was calling to say goodbye. His voice was cold, clipped, deeply disappointed. He told Sarah that after 6 years of personal partnership, he felt like he had finally been handed off to a machine. The email he received had thanked him for his interest in the Youth Employment Initiative. Arthur had never given a cent to employment. He was the primary benefactor for the housing wing. He told her that if he was now just a data point in a generic database, he would rather send his capital where the leadership still knew his name. Sarah felt the air leave her lungs. The silence on the line stretched for 5 seconds that felt like 5 hours. In that moment, the future of the nonprofit did not just look uncertain, it looked over. Sarah Mitchell was the executive director of Hope Harbor, a small but vital nonprofit serving homeless youth in Portland, Oregon. 3 full-time staff, a budget of under $400,000 per year. Every dollar was a battle, every donor was a lifeline. A typical Tuesday for Sarah did not involve strategy or outreach. It involved an endless, suffocating cycle of correspondence. Over 5 hours every week consumed by donor emails, community updates, and impact reports. While she sat hunched over a keyboard, a major corporate sponsor was waiting for a callback about a summer gala. A potential $10,000 matching grant twisting in the wind because Sarah could not find 40 minutes to review their contract. A local foundation was waiting for a grant revision that could have funded an outreach van to reach youth in the outer suburbs who were currently invisible to the system. Every hour Sarah spent fighting her inbox was an hour she was not fighting for the children on the street. A donor named Mrs. Gable had given $5,000 on Friday. It was now Tuesday afternoon. Mrs. Gable had not received even a simple acknowledgement. Sarah knew that every hour of silence felt like a lack of gratitude. But the sheer volume of the work made it impossible to keep up. She was sacrificing the future of the organization to keep pace with the volume of its present. When the corporate sponsor stopped calling and the grant deadline passed without a submission, the cost of the inbox was no longer just a personal headache. It was an organizational crisis. The mission was being choked by the very communications meant to sustain it. Sarah decided to implement artificial intelligence because she felt she had no other choice. She opened her laptop and began feeding basic information into a new browser tab. No voice framework, no style guide. Generic prompts like write a thank you email to a major donor or summarize our recent housing successes. The software produced text that was polished, grammatically perfect, but it was soulless. It was the digital equivalent of a generic greeting card found in a pharmacy aisle. The disaster happened at 4 o'clock. Sarah was rushing to finish a batch of updates before a board meeting. She used a generic prompt to generate messages for her top-tier list, copied the text, pasted it into her email client, and hit send on 50 messages in less than 10 minutes. In her haste, she did not notice that the software had hallucinated a connection between her largest donor and a program he did not support. She sent the email to Arthur Vance. Across town, Arthur sat in his study and opened the message. As his eyes scanned the words, youth employment, a cold knot formed in his stomach. He wondered if the person he had trusted for 6 years had even bothered to look at his file, or if he was simply a line item in a software program designed to harvest his money. He realized in that moment that he was no longer a partner. He was an automated transaction. He picked up the phone immediately. When Arthur hung up after that initial icy exchange, Sarah did not move. She sat at her desk, hands trembling slightly. She looked at the glowing blue light of her laptop screen, the very tool she thought would save her, and felt a wave of nausea. She did not cry, but she felt a profound sense of professional failure. She had spent a decade building a reputation for integrity, and she had dismantled it in a single unreviewed batch of outgoing mail. The recovery began with a moment of total vulnerability. Sarah did not send an email back. She called Arthur directly, 63 minutes on the phone. She did not make excuses. She did not blame the software. She told him about the Tuesday afternoons where she felt like she was failing the youth they serve because she was trapped behind a screen. She explained that she had tried to automate a relationship that deserved her full presence. The temperature of the call changed when Arthur sighed and said that he did not mind a mistake, but he minded being ignored. He told her that he did not give money to organizations. He gave money to people he believed in. That was the moment the ice broke. She promised him that he would never receive an unverified word from her office again. The technology would serve the relationship, not replace it. Sarah realized that the artificial intelligence was not the problem. The problem was the absence of a system. She spent the following weekend building the architecture of her voice. She documented the phrases and values that defined Hope Harbor. They never used the word underprivileged and always used the word resilient, professional yet deeply personal. She built a style guide that was 30 pages long, ensuring that any machine she used would have a human soul to emulate. Next, she developed 12 distinct prompt templates: a template for the first-time donor, a template for the long-term monthly giver, a template for the corporate partner, a template for the community volunteer. Each prompt required her to input a personal detail, a specific conversation or shared memory, before the machine would generate a single word. She integrated Zapier to connect their PayPal giving fund directly to Mailchimp. The moment a donation arrived, the data was categorized correctly, ending the nightmare of manual entry and human error. It took 3 weeks before the system felt natural. The hardest part was not the technology. It was the discipline of the final human filter. Sarah had to learn to resist the urge to trust the machine completely. The results were transformative. Weekly communication time dropped from 5 hours to 30 minutes. 2 months later, a donor who had given $50 for 3 consecutive years increased her monthly gift to $200 on the spot. She said she had never felt so connected to the actual progress of the housing project. Arthur Vance upgraded his annual gift to $50,000. He told Sarah that he felt like he was finally seeing the impact of his capital in real time. On a Tuesday afternoon in July, Sarah was not at her desk. She was at the construction site of the new youth center. Her phone was in her pocket. The updates were already scheduled. The machine was handling the drafts. But Sarah was finally providing the heart. Overall donations increased by 15% over the next 6 months. Without a single new fundraising campaign, pure result of consistency and communication quality. Sarah now believes that sustainable communication is not an optional luxury. It is a mission-critical decision. When you try to save time by cutting out the human element, you end up losing the very thing you are trying to save. The efficiency of the machine only matters if it creates the space for the human to do the work only a human can do. When we outsource our empathy, we outsource our value. The story of Hope Harbor is a reminder that in an increasingly automated world, the personal touch is not just a nice addition. It is your most valuable competitive advantage. Do not let the pursuit of speed become the enemy of your impact. Build the framework first. Use the technology to amplify your humanity, not replace it.